Between the two Americas lies a place of dreams, of pristine beaches and tropical waters, where volcanoes pierce the sky and the sun always shines. A perfect mix of islands and sea. The Caribbean is one of the most alluring seas on Earth, nestled between the two American continents and embracing hundreds of islands of stunning diversity. For centuries, the Caribbean has drawn adventurers and explorers, weaving an enchanting web of sun, trade winds, bountiful fruit, and the captivating lure of treasure. Its islands are as diverse as they are numerous. Many are mountainous, others are flat as pancakes. Some are covered in tropical jungle, others are arid desert. Some began as coral reefs, others as undersea volcanoes. The largest, Cuba, is more than 500 miles across, while others, such as Mustique, are mere specks on the map. Matching the Caribbean's geographical diversity is its intriguing mix of cultures. Throughout the islands are examples of the varied peoples and forces that produced this cultural melting pot, from African voodoo to Creole cuisine to the height of European luxury. About the same size as the Mediterranean, the Caribbean Sea stretches almost 1,900 miles, from Barbados to the Yucatan Peninsula, where the Mayan civilization flourished and reached its peak around the year 1000. Starting around 400 BC, the Caribbean's indigenous people, the Arawak Indians, sailed here in dugout canoes from their ancestral home in the Orinoco regions of Guyana and Venezuela. They were a peaceful people who enjoyed the Caribbean's tranquility and rich fishing waters, and who had no word for war. In the 13th century, the vicious Carib Indians migrated from the Guyana region of South America and brought an end to the Arawak's peaceful existence. The man-eating Caribs annihilated the Arawaks in the Windward and Leeward Islands and were making raids on Haiti and Jamaica when Christopher Columbus came to the New World. The arrival of the Spanish marked the beginning of a new order and the end of both the Arawaks and the Caribs. The 16th and 17th centuries saw the era of pirates, those seafaring rogues who hid among the Caribbean's countless isles and preyed on the galleons sailing for Spain. At the same time, the English, Dutch, and French established sugar plantations worked by thousands of slaves brought from West Africa. Today, these varied influences can be felt all over the Caribbean. European and American ways mixed with the customs of African slaves and East Indian indentured servants to produce a rich tapestry of cultures, each unique to its own island. Spain no longer claims any colonies here, but the flavor of Spain lives on in the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. Former British colonies such as Antigua and Barbados can be as British as Britain itself, and all have remained members of the Commonwealth. The French West Indies, which include Guadeloupe, Martinique, and St. Bart's, remain overseas departments of France. Likewise, the Dutch Antilles, excluding Aruba, are full regions of the Netherlands. American influence is most striking in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Children born here automatically become U.S. citizens. Situated almost entirely within the tropics, the Caribbean has a balmy, tropical climate throughout its range. The weather is governed by warm sea currents from the equator, which keep the waters of the Caribbean and Atlantic warm all year and form the Gulf Stream to the north. The northeast trade winds predominate throughout the year, bringing precipitation from May to October. But wet weather here means gathering clouds late in the day for brief thunderstorms in the afternoon and evening. Seldom does it rain for long periods of time, except during hurricane season, which reaches its peak in August and September. There is little temperature difference throughout the year, making the Caribbean an appealing place in any season. The Caribbean islands are divided into geographical groups. The Greater Antilles include the large islands of Cuba, Jamaica, Hispaniola, and Puerto Rico. The Lesser Antilles describe the small islands that curve in an arc from Puerto Rico south to Trinidad near the coast of Venezuela. The Lesser Antilles are divided into the Leeward Islands in the north and Windward Islands in the south. North of the Greater Antilles lie the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos Islands, a group of small, scattered islands that are technically in the Atlantic, but are usually considered part of the Caribbean. Hispaniola, the name given to the large island that today comprises Haiti and the Dominican Republic, has seen troubled times. In the 18th century, Haiti was one of the world's richest colonies. It produced half the world's sugar on its French plantations. Today, Haiti is hampered by poverty and political instability. Its neighbor on the island, the Dominican Republic, is much more stable. The country is blessed with untapped resources, dramatic natural beauty, and gracious people. Even though it is the Caribbean's largest democracy, it is relatively undiscovered by visitors because of its turbulent past. In 1978, the first peaceful transfer of power from one freely elected president to another occurred, and the country has enjoyed increasing popularity ever since. The Dominican Republic is an agricultural island and relies heavily on sugar cane for export. Cane fields fill valleys all over the country, where the ageless process of harvesting cane never ceases. American influence is stronger in nearby Puerto Rico, an airline hub of the Caribbean and a popular port of call for cruise ships. The high-rise towers of San Juan's financial district symbolize Puerto Rico's importance as a banking center, and the large beachfront hotels with their dazzling casinos emphasize the island's commitment to tourism. But too many visitors leave with only the image of San Juan's urban sprawl or high-rise resorts. In fact, the island is one of the most beautiful in the entire region, with everything from deserted beaches to hidden retreats to protected rainforests. The best introduction to Puerto Rico's heritage is a walk through the streets of Old San Juan, where 5 centuries of history live on in the narrow lanes and colonial architecture. Old San Juan is a museum of pastel walls and wooden balconies, reflecting the days of Spanish rule when the name of the town was Puerto Rico, or Rich Port, and the island was known as San Juan. Over the years, the names traded places, and today the old city with its cathedrals, churches, and fortress walls retains the flavor of that rich port. The most impressive sight in the old city is El Morro, the colossal fort dominating San Juan Bay. It was built beginning in 1540 to protect the island from marauders such as Sir Francis Drake, who was repelled in 1595. El Morro reached its present dimensions in 1787 and is now administered by the U.S. National Park Service. High in the mountains, only 25 miles east of San Juan, is El Yunque, the only tropical rainforest in the U.S. National Forest System. Covering 28,000 acres, it is a refuge for the rare Puerto Rican parrot and countless other birds, as well as 240 species of native trees. Another kind of landmark which has its counterparts on islands throughout the Caribbean is the local rum distillery. Rum played an important role in the region's history. Where sugar cane was produced, so was rum, and it helped make plantations prosperous. Much of it was sold to ships for consumption by their crews, and much more was exported overseas. Rum is distilled directly from sugar cane and is considered the purest of spirits. The sugar in the cane eliminates the need for preliminary malting to change starch into sugar, which other spirits require. Today, rum from the Caribbean is considered the best in the world. The waters around Puerto Rico provide some of the world's best sport fishing, where hooking a big one is an unforgettable thrill. The Cayman Islands, located just below Cuba, are the first choice for many Caribbean divers. The Caymans are little more than 3 coral reefs poking above the surface, surrounded by more coral reefs, and their waters are filled with an abundance of marine life, from multicolored fish to exotic coral formations. To get acquainted with the sport of scuba diving, beginners can take a 1-day course which includes a dive, or they can take a 5-day course to obtain full certification. But the mysteries of the sea are not hidden from non-divers. Snorkeling is another great way to explore the depths. There is also diving in Jamaica, the island which perhaps best represents the mystique of the Caribbean. Jamaica is a place of dramatic landscape, perfect beaches, and vibrant culture. The whole romantic and tragic history of the region was played out here, first with the coming of the Arawaks, followed by the Spanish, the pirates, and the British, who brought the plantation system from Barbados. Jamaica produced the sound of reggae music made famous by musicians such as Jimmy Cliff, Peter Tosh, and Bob Marley. Anything that can be found in the Caribbean can be found in Jamaica. From the impenetrable forests of the Blue Mountains to the caves of the Blue Lagoon. Jamaica has a well-developed tourism industry, which includes fabulous beach resorts and secluded lodges, and of course, every water sport imaginable. Banana rafts made of bamboo still make their way down the island's many rivers, but now they carry visitors rather than crops on their tranquil journeys. Midway between Puerto Rico and the Florida Keys, a multicolored mosaic of flat coral islands extends in a 750-mile arc to the northern edge of the Caribbean. These are the Bahamas, which have drawn tourists for years to their beautiful beaches, English colonial atmosphere, and quiet way of life. Today, Prince George Wharf in the capital city of Nassau sees more traffic in cruise ships than pirate rigs, but the flavor of more bawdy times lives on in the old city. The Bahamas is an independent member of the British Commonwealth, and this British heritage is evident in Parliament Square with its pink colonial buildings. Fascinating remnants of history remain in the dungeons of Fort Charlotte, where convicts and pirates spent their final days. Fort Finn Castle, built like the prow of a ship, commands the hill above the Queen's Staircase, a 66-step climb hewn from the cliff by slaves and later named for Queen Victoria. The Bahamas economy depends heavily on tourism, and with its endless sun and white sand beaches, the Bahamas lives up to its promises. The clear, shallow waters among the Bahamas coral reefs are superb places for bone fishing, and not surprisingly, fishermen come from all over the world to try their luck at stalking these powerful game fish. The riches of the sea provide an exceptional bounty for the dinner plate, and one tantalizing dish is conch. Conch is so popular with the locals that its export is prohibited to preserve it as a mainstay of Bahamian cuisine. Gambling is legal here, but while the casino is popular with visitors, bank and tourism are the mainstays of the Bahamian economy. Its status as a tax haven and bank secrecy laws have made the Bahamas an international finance center popular with offshore companies, trusts, and individuals. No matter how the money is made, a good place to spend it is in nearby St. Thomas, the shopping capital of the U.S. Virgin Islands. St. Thomas is a free port where each person can purchase $800 worth of goods duty-free. The most popular items are liquor, fashions, and jewelry. The U.S. Virgin Islands were purchased in 1917 from Denmark to help protect the Panama Canal. Today, St. Thomas is thoroughly developed, but it still retains its natural beauty. It has fine white beaches, great sport fishing and diving, and excellent restaurants. It is the most populous of the three U.S. Virgins, which include St. Croix and St. John, and is geared toward cruise ship passengers. In the high season, as many as 5 ships a day put into port at Charlotte Amalie, and the local streets take on a carnival atmosphere. Neighboring St. John provides a completely different experience of the islands, offering a welcome respite from the hurly-burly of St. Thomas. St. John sees very few tourists because development has been closely controlled. There is no airport, and visitors who arrive by boat are greeted by a pristine wonderland of fabulous beaches and wooded hills. Two-thirds of the island and many of the surrounding reefs are protected as the Virgin Islands National Park. It provides numerous hidden spots for camping, an inexpensive and popular alternative for enjoying these islands. More than 50 islands comprise the British Virgin Islands, but Tortola, Virgin Gorda, Anegada, and Joost van Dyke are the principal ones. The islands are craggy, volcanic outcroppings with fine beaches, gorgeous mountain scenery, and a laid-back lifestyle. Virgin Gorda marks the north end of Sir Francis Drake Channel, named after the British sea captain who arrived here in 1595 seeking Spanish galleons. All along the channel are islands steeped in the lore of piracy. Norman Island, with its seaside caves, is said to be the inspiration for Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island. The inhospitable rocky outcropping called Dead Man's Key is where the infamous Blackbeard marooned 15 pirates with only a bottle of rum, creating the legend and the ditty, Yo-ho-ho, and a bottle of rum. Just as long as there have been ships carrying bounty and pirates raiding them, so too have there been shipwrecks and sunken treasure. From the beginning of Spanish conquest in the New World, billions of dollars in silver, gold, emeralds, and pearls were loaded in ships for the voyage to Spain. Hundreds of these ships were taken by pirates, and almost as many foundered on shoals or were sunk by storm. The Anegada Passage, a principal route between the Virgin Islands and the Leeward Islands into the Atlantic, is a treacherous channel lined with hidden reefs which have snared many a vessel over the years. Today, people are still finding these shipwrecks, sometimes discovering treasure in the depths. There are many ways to explore the waters of the Virgin Islands: by cruise ships, dive charters, schooners, windjammers, and sailboats. The northeast trade winds blow year-round and make this the perfect area for yachting. An ideal way to go is to charter a boat and sail away on the winds. There are companies throughout the Virgin Islands that specialize in bareboat charters, and it is surprisingly easy to do. A perfect family vacation. Water sports are open to sailors as well, including diving, windsurfing, and a little impromptu spinnaker flying. There will, of course, be times when sailors want to go ashore for more provisions, always a good way to get a taste of local culture. On St. Bart's, for instance, which is chic, quiet, and decidedly French. Here the most strenuous activity of the day may be buying a loaf or two of the famous St. Bart's French bread, baked fresh every morning. St. Bart's is a small island with fabulous beaches and perfect anchorages for visiting sailors. Most of its inhabitants are descendants of the original settlers from Normandy. The remains of the rock walls that crisscrossed the island in the early days can still be seen in many places, and the local architecture is one of the island's main attractions. Gustavia is one of the best anchorages in the Caribbean, one of the rare places where boats can throw out a forward anchor and back right up to the dock, Mediterranean style. Back on board, the half-French, half-Dutch island of St. Martin calls. Divided in 1648 when the two countries couldn't agree who would rule over the island, it is considered the smallest territory in the world, shared by two sovereign states. Signs of its division are everywhere. The Dutch side, known as Sint Maarten, is highly developed and caters to cruise ship passengers. The streets of Philipsburg are crowded with souvenir sellers, and visitors can try their luck gambling in the local casinos. The French side is quieter, less developed, and the ports of Marigot and Grand Case have a distinctly Mediterranean feel. The British Leeward Islands once were all colonies, but today the only ones remaining under the Crown are Anguilla and Montserrat. Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis are independent states. Antigua draws yachtsmen from all over the world to take part in the famous Race Week sailboat races, held here because of the reliable, challenging trade winds. The French presence in the Caribbean began in Martinique, an island loved by the French painter Paul Gauguin before he ever saw Tahiti. It is a mountainous, volcanic island with a rough coastline that has dozens of coves and miles of secluded beaches. Gauguin's work here represented a break from Impressionism and was a prelude to his better-known Tahitian work. Martinique, like many of the Windward Islands, is remarkably fertile. Almost anything that touches the ground here grows, and there is a bounty of tropical fruit and flowers that staggers the eye. This lush, natural beauty also abounds on Dominica and St. Lucia. Dominica is a large, undeveloped island of mountains and dense rainforest, so rich that it contains many plants found in few other places in the world. St. Lucia has one of the Caribbean's most striking natural sights, the Pitons, two half-mile-high, jungle-covered volcanic peaks that rise dramatically from the sea. To the east of St. Lucia lies Barbados, the former British island known for its rum and history of sugar plantation. Its Atlantic coastline is very rugged, with rough seas, while its Caribbean side is blessed with beautiful white sand beaches. The last of the British Windward Islands are St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which compete with the Virgin Islands as the finest yachting region in the Caribbean. At the end of the Grenadines, as though saving the best for last, lies a jewel of an island, Grenada. Grenada is the southernmost of the Windward Islands, and it achieved dubious fame in 1983 when the U.S. Army invaded to unseat a revolutionary government that had taken power in a bloody coup. Today, the political problems are resolved, and the island is going about the business of daily life, which is slow and easy. Grenada is extremely fertile, or as the locals say, drop a seed anywhere and it will grow. Agriculture remains the focus of the island, and tourism barely ranks as a second industry. The center of the island is a jungle of flowering plants, from oleander to hibiscus. Grenada is called the Spice Island because it produces more spices per square mile than any other place on Earth, from cloves and ginger to a third of the world's nutmeg. Grenada's bounty spills forth in St. George's lively markets, where growers lay out wares ranging from spicy homemade sauces to bananas and breadfruit. The produce market is a mainstay of Caribbean culture, and a visit here is an immersion in colorful island life. The musical traditions of the Caribbean run as deep as the cultures that settled here, and the rhythms of calypso and reggae can be felt throughout the islands. Nowhere is calypso more pervasive than in its birthplace on the islands of Trinidad and Tobago. Here in Trinidad, West African slaves mixed their rhythms with those of the Spanish colonizers to create the Afro-Caribbean blend that is synonymous with dancing and improvisation. Calypso is impromptu storytelling and social commentary set to infectious rhythms.
Well, Calypso started many years ago, and it started in a very good tempo. The way how they arrived to the melody, they were really off what they call slavery, and they were really celebrating. And that's where Calypso started arriving. But the fact now should be told, Calypso is all over the world. For Trinidad is the land of Calypso, that's the place to know. Trinidad and Tobago is the land of Calypso. Outside. All right.
The people of Trinidad's irrepressible urge to make music is probably best reflected in the steel drum. Originally fashioned from discarded oil barrels, the steel drum is now one of the most popular instruments in the Caribbean. Their sound is unmistakable, and the steel band is an important part of everyday life.
So steel band is a thing that attracts people, you know, it sort of compels you. It has a very compulsive force that once you get involved with it, you know, you sort of put it ahead of anything else.
Calypso achieves its highest expression in the visual and musical spectacle of Carnival. Carnival is celebrated more lavishly in Trinidad than anywhere else in the Caribbean. It's a non-stop party for 2 days before Ash Wednesday, and the locals plan for it all year. The festivity is carefully organized, with 15 to 20 clubs competing for the best costumes. Bands represent each club, and the people parade in costumes ranging from African tribal attire to serpents to dazzling butterflies. It is a sensual and high-spirited celebration of life. The Caribbean is a magical place, a tropical paradise where dreams come true. The dream can be found in 1,000 ways, sailing away on a windjammer or strolling a secluded beach. It lives in the faces of the people, the rhythms of the music, the transcendent beauty of the land and the sea. Hooking a sport fish or watching the sunset, the dream is here in the enchanted islands of the Caribbean.